At my grandfather's will reading, the lawyer announced, the family fortune goes to one person only. My uncle smirked, obviously, that's me. But when the lawyer read my name instead, his face turned red with rage. This is a fraud, he screamed. My hands trembled as the lawyer handed me a letter. Your grandfather knew this would happen. That's why he left you this. When I opened it, the truth about our family's betrayals was finally exposed. My name's Alex, I'm in my early 30s, and I grew up in Chicago. My grandfather, George, was a self-made man. Born during the Great Depression, he worked his way up from being a janitor to owning several real estate and manufacturing companies in the Midwest. The guy had grit. He was tough but fair, and he believed in earning everything yourself. My dad died when I was 12, so Grandpa kind of stepped in as that father figure. I wasn't super close with him in my teenage years, he was old school, and I was just a punk kid trying to fit in. But as I got older, we reconnected. I started helping out with small stuff in his business when I was in college, doing spreadsheets, taking calls, running errands. I wasn't trying to get anything out of it. I just liked being around him and learning how things worked. Now here's where the story gets messy. Grandpa had 3 kids, my dad, who passed, my Aunt Sharon, who lives in Arizona and stays out of everything, and my Uncle Richard, the golden child. Richard was the oldest, the loudest, and definitely the most entitled. Grew up thinking the world owed him something just because he was George's son. Always drove flashy cars, had a new Rolex every time I saw him, and had a reputation for being a real piece of work. When Grandpa got older, he slowed down a bit but was still sharp. Even at 88, he knew exactly what he wanted. About 6 months before he died, I remember having coffee with him and he said something weird. He looked at me dead serious and said, "People show their true colors when there's money involved." I didn't ask what he meant. I should have. Fast forward to the funeral, beautiful service, big turnout, lots of old business partners and family friends came. Everyone dressed to the nines. Richard showed up in a tailored suit that probably cost more than my car. Gave a speech about legacy and honor, and how Grandpa built everything for his family and how he'd carry it on. Sharon came too, kept quiet like always. About a week later, we all got the call to meet at Grandpa's old office downtown for the reading of the will. The office was a time capsule, dark wood panels, old oil paintings, his dusty globe bar in the corner. We all gathered around this massive mahogany table. Mr. Feldman, the family lawyer who had worked with Grandpa for over 40 years, walked in holding a thick folder. Everyone was quiet, waiting. Richard sat there with this smug look like he already had the money wired to his account. Feldman clears his throat and says, according to Mr. George Whitman's last will and testament, the entire estate, including all business assets, properties, and financial holdings, is to be transferred to one individual. There was a pause. You could feel the air tighten. Feldman reached into his briefcase and pulled out a sealed envelope. Mr. Whitman anticipated this reaction. He left a personal letter for Alex. I am instructed to give this to him directly. My hands were shaking when I took it. Everyone was staring. I opened the envelope and inside was a single handwritten letter from Grandpa. It said, "Alex, if you're reading this, then the worst has happened and I'm no longer here. I knew this day would come, and I knew how some people in our family would respond. I've watched quietly for years. Watched who showed up. Who worked. Who took and who gave. You've never asked me for anything. You worked when nobody saw. You helped me when my hands couldn't do what they used to. You treated me like a person, not a wallet. Richard was supposed to carry the torch, but he turned into someone I don't recognize. Everything I built for the future, not for someone to drain it. You're the future, Alex. It's all yours now. Do right by it. Love, Grandpa." I looked up, and Richard was already standing. This is forged. There's no way he wrote that. You manipulated him, didn't you? Sit down, Richard, Feldman said. There are video recordings, witness testimonies, medical evaluations, everything is documented. Your father was fully aware and mentally sound when he signed these documents. Richard stormed out, muttering something about lawsuits. Sharon gave me a small nod but didn't say anything. Everyone else just sat in stunned silence. And just like that, my life changed. But that's not the end of it. Since that day, Richard's been on a warpath. He's tried to contest the will. Claimed Grandpa was coerced. Hired private investigators. Started spreading lies about me in the business community. Said I'm just a dumb kid who got lucky and that I stole what was rightfully his. He even showed up at my condo one night, drunk, screaming in the hallway that I ruined the family. My neighbors had to call security. The guy's completely unhinged. I also started getting weird letters. Anonymous threats. One said, "You'll lose it all just like you stole it." Another one had no return address and just said, "The truth will come out." Some real creepy stuff. I haven't touched the money yet. I'm still meeting with accountants, lawyers, trying to understand what I even own now. It's overwhelming. I went from living paycheck to suddenly managing millions, and not just money, but entire companies. Employees. Real people with families. It's terrifying. And through all of it, I keep thinking, what did Grandpa know? What did he see that made him trust me over his own son? I haven't told anyone this yet, but the letter wasn't the only thing in the envelope. There was a second, smaller note folded up behind it. No greeting, no closing. Just one sentence, "Ask Richard about 1994. I have no idea what it means. But I intend to find out. After the will reading, my life got flipped upside down. I couldn't go a day without a phone call from someone I didn't know, people claiming to be old friends of Grandpa, distant cousins who magically showed up, old business partners fishing for a deal. Everyone wanted something. Everyone had a story. But none of that shook me the way that note did. Ask Richard about 1994. So I waited. Days turned into a week. Then, out of nowhere, I got a call from Sharon. Aunt Sharon never calls. She said she was back in town and wanted to talk. We met at a quiet diner outside of the city. She looked nervous, like she hadn't slept in days. She didn't even wait for coffee before she started talking. "Your grandfather was trying to protect you," she said. "And probably protect himself, too." I asked her what she meant. "You need to be careful," she said. "There are things about this family you don't understand. Things that happened a long time ago." Then she leaned in close and whispered, "Your dad didn't just get sick. Someone made him sick." I just stared at her. She went on, "Your dad started questioning things in the business back in '94. Accounting numbers that didn't add up. Missing funds. Richard was always involved, but your dad was catching on. That's when he suddenly got sick. Within a year, he was dead." My hands went cold. I couldn't speak. Sharon shook her head and said, "I couldn't prove anything. I was too scared back then. But you're the only one left who can get to the truth now. Just, be careful." After she left, I sat in my car for almost an hour. If what she said was true, then Richard didn't just want the money. He was hiding something. I went back to the condo and stared at the locked file case for a long time. That's when I remembered something. A small key Grandpa used to carry on his keychain. He used to say, "Some things are too important to forget, even when you get old." I checked the old coat he'd left me in his closet. There it was. A tiny brass key in the inside pocket. It fit the case. My stomach turned. I read that line again and again. I didn't want to believe it. I still don't. There were also photocopies of medical records. Altered reports. 2 versions of blood test results, one showing liver damage, the other showing nothing. The handwriting didn't match. It was staged. And then, photos. Photos of Richard and Paul together at a country club. At a private hospital in Michigan. In front of a building labeled Vanguard Clinical Testing. Dates matched. Everything lined up. Richard didn't just want the company. He planned to take it. And he got rid of my dad to do it. I wanted to throw up. I called Feldman, told him what I found. He came over within the hour. After looking through everything, he said, if this is true, then what your grandfather did in his will wasn't just passing the torch. It was justice. But here's the thing, Richard doesn't know I have these files. Not yet. He's still out there, probably thinking he can take it all back through lawyers, threats, whatever. But once he finds out I have proof, real proof, of what he did, I don't know what he'll do. And that scares the hell out of me. I'm meeting with a private investigator tomorrow. Someone who used to work federal cases. I need to make sure this info is secure. I need to make sure it goes public if anything happens to me. Because now, this isn't just about a will. This is about what really happened to my dad. And why Grandpa made me the heir. So, after unlocking the file case and seeing all those letters and records, I couldn't sleep for days. I'd read the same letter over and over, looking for something I missed. Some detail that would give me a next step. My thoughts kept going back to that name, Paul Alton. I'd never heard of him until now, but he clearly played a huge role in what went down in 1994. I decided to track him down. I figured he might be long gone, but after a few hours online and some digging, I found him. Paul Alton, age 76, living in a retirement community just outside Springfield, Illinois. Less than a 3-hour drive. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. When I got there, I asked the front desk if I could speak with him. The lady gave me a weird look and said, he doesn't get many visitors. Then she buzzed his room. He agreed to see me. Paul looked tired. Older than his age. When I introduced myself as Alex Whitman, his eyes went wide for a second. Then he smiled, a weird, sad kind of smile. I figured you'd come eventually, he said. I didn't even ask what he meant. I just sat down and pulled out one of the letters I'd brought with me. He looked at it for a long time. Then he said, you have no idea what kind of mess you're in, do you? I asked him about my dad. About Richard. About Vanguard Clinical Testing. He sighed and said, I never wanted your father dead. That wasn't supposed to happen. But once the wheels started turning, there was no way to stop them. That's when he told me something I didn't expect at all. It wasn't Richard's plan. That stopped me cold. What do you mean? He looked around the room like someone might be listening, then leaned in close. Richard was just the puppet. The real power was your grandfather's old partner, Clarence Rowe. I'd heard that name before. Clarence was Grandpa's first business partner when he started out in the 1960s. But they had a falling out in the late 80s, and Clarence disappeared from the company records. Grandpa never talked about him. Paul went on. Clarence ran a shadow operation. Offshore accounts, fake suppliers, shell companies. He pulled Richard in, promised him control of the business if he helped get your father out of the way. Your grandfather started catching on, so Clarence forced me to cook the books. I was stunned. Clarence was supposed to be long gone. He's not dead? I asked. Paul shook his head slowly. No. He's still out there. Hiding in plain sight. And if you're digging into this, he already knows. I left shaken. I didn't even say goodbye. I just drove home and locked everything in a safe. That night, I got another envelope at my door. No stamp. No name. Inside was a single Polaroid photo. It was a picture of my grandfather. Sitting in a hospital bed. With Clarence Rowe standing behind him. And the date written on the back? June 2022. Just a few months before Grandpa died. He met with him. Recently. After all these years. And he never told anyone. The photo shook me more than anything else so far. Why would Grandpa meet with the man who helped destroy his family? Was he trying to make peace? Was he being threatened? Was he forced? And then the second twist hit me. I showed the picture to Feldman. He went quiet for a long time. Then he said, "That's not a hospital." I asked what he meant. He pointed at the 4 setup in the picture and said, "That's home medical equipment. That photo wasn't taken in a hospital. It was taken in someone's house." And that's when everything started to come together. Grandpa knew something was coming. He knew Clarence was back. Maybe Clarence was blackmailing him, maybe threatening the business. That would explain why Grandpa changed the will, why he didn't leave anything to Richard, who was probably still tied up with Clarence's mess. Why he left everything to me. But what I didn't understand, what I still don't, is why my grandfather didn't tell me any of this. Why hide all these clues and letters, in files, in some locked case? Why not just sit me down and say, "Alex, here's what's really going on"? Unless he knew he couldn't trust anyone. Not even me. And the creepiest part? When I checked the security camera in the condo hallway, yes, I installed one after Richard's drunk freakout, the person who left the envelope with the photo was wearing a delivery uniform and a black ring on his left hand. Clarence Rowe wore one of those in an old photo I found in the storage box. He's watching me. He knows I'm onto him. And now I don't know who to trust. Not the lawyers. Not the board members. Not even my own aunt, who told me just enough to get me curious, but maybe too much. This isn't about inheritance anymore. This is about a man who built an empire, tried to protect it, and somehow got pulled back in before he died. And whatever's buried in 1994? It's a hell of a lot bigger than I thought. After getting that photo of my grandfather and Clarence Rowe, I didn't sleep for 2 nights straight. I went full obsessive. Rewatched the hallway footage 50 times. Tried to track the uniform. Called private courier services. No luck. But I did notice something. The man delivering the envelope was wearing a wristwatch, one I'd seen before. Richard's. And that's when something cracked inside me. If Richard was back in contact with Clarence, then this wasn't just some old business feud. It was still going. Still active. And I was sitting on a bomb that hadn't gone off yet. 2 days later, I called for a full board meeting. I had the legal power now. I was the sole heir and majority shareholder. The board was mostly made up of old guys, people who'd worked with my grandfather, a few that probably knew more than they let on. I told them I had something important to share. Something that would change how they saw the Whitman legacy. I invited Sharon. I even invited Richard. He showed up. Expensive suit. Slicked back hair. His usual arrogant smirk. Like none of this fazed him. Like he still thought he could talk his way out of anything. I started by showing them the letters. One by one. Then the forged medical reports. Then Paul Alton's signed affidavit. Yes, I got it. After paying for his nursing care for a year, he gave me a full, notarized statement. The board sat in stunned silence. Richard scoffed. "This is all fake. You're seriously going to believe some washed-up accountant living in a roach motel? You're desperate, Alex." I ignored him. Then I pulled out the final piece, the photo of Clarence and Grandpa. With the note on the back, in Grandpa's own handwriting. "If you're seeing this, I ran out of time. Clarence has returned. Be careful who you trust." The room went cold. Sharon gasped. One of the board members whispered, "Jesus Christ." Richard stood up. "This is all manipulation." He was senile. He probably didn't even write that. "Your father was tested 3 times for cognitive decline in the last year of his life," Feldman, the lawyer, said firmly. "Every test came back clear. And that handwriting has already been verified." Richard's jaw clenched. He started to speak, but I cut him off. "You didn't just lie to me. You killed our father. Silence. You could hear the air leave the room. Sharon put her hand to her mouth. Richard didn't deny it. He didn't admit it either. Instead, he muttered, "You think you're so pure? You think you're better than me?" Grandpa just picked the next sheep to control. I stood up. No, Richard. He picked the one who didn't try to poison his own brother for a piece of the empire. Richard's face went pale. And then, he lost it. He slammed his fist on the table. He was going to cut me out anyway. He told me in '93 that I was a disappointment. That he'd never give me control. What was I supposed to do? Let all of it go to William? The good son? Tears started welling in Sharon's eyes. I did everything for this family. Richard shouted. Everything. And you just walk in, golden boy, with your tragic little story and your ***king sad eyes. Enough, Feldman said. I'm calling the police, one of the board members added. Richard panicked. You can't prove anything. Paul's testimony is worthless. No, I said, quietly. But your bank transfers from 1994 to Vanguard clinical testing? I have them. That shut him up for good. Police came. Richard was arrested that same afternoon. They found more than enough in his house to build a case. Documents. Pay stubs. Even a burner phone with messages between him and Clarence. Clarence, by the way, vanished again. Last seen at a private airstrip near St. Louis. No passport. No trail. Like a ghost. Sharon stayed with me that night. We sat in silence for hours. I should have said something sooner, she whispered. I was afraid of him. I watched him destroy your father, and I did nothing. I didn't have the heart to blame her. She was a victim too, in her own way. The company is mine now. Fully. The legal stuff is being handled. Richard's trial is coming, and if there's justice in the world, he won't see daylight for a long time. I cleaned out Grandpa's office yesterday. Everything smelled like cedar and paper and dust. I found a tiny sticky note under the drawer. It just said, "Don't let the rot take root." It made me cry harder than I have in years. I realized that for all his flaws, Grandpa was trying to protect what mattered, even if it meant tearing the family apart to do it. I don't feel like I won. I feel like I'm holding the last broken piece of something that was once great. I don't know if I'll ever forgive Richard. Or Sharon. Or even Grandpa, for keeping all of this secret until after he died. But I know one thing for sure, I'll never let history repeat itself. I'll build something better. Something clean. No lies. No poison. Just truth. Even if it hurts.